At the airport, my daughter said, "You're flying economy, we're flying business class." I stayed silent. Not because I agreed. Not because it didn't hurt. But because she didn't know something yet. She didn't know that I paid for the tickets. And somewhere over the Atlantic Ocean, I made one phone call. Good day, dear listeners. It's Margaret again. I'm truly glad you're here with me today. If you're listening right now, please take a second to like this video and tell me which city you're listening from. I always read your comments, and it reminds me that stories travel farther than we ever do. And please stay with me until the end, because this story changed the rest of my life. For most of my life, I believed family was everything. Not important. Not valuable. Everything. I was married to my husband, Leonard, for 42 years. He was an accountant. Numbers were his comfort. Order was his peace. He believed in planning for the future the way some people believe in religion. And I believed in people. Together we built a good life. Not flashy. Not extravagant. But safe. Stable. Honest. We paid off our home early. We saved aggressively. We invested carefully. And when our daughter Melissa was born, we built everything with one goal in mind. Security for her. Opportunities for her. A life easier than ours. When Leonard passed away 4 years ago, I thought the hardest part of my life had already happened. I was wrong. Melissa called me every day for the first few months after his funeral. "Mom, you're not alone," she would say. "I'll always take care of you." I believed her. I wanted to believe her. The first time she asked for money after Leonard died, it made sense. "Mom, we're a little tight after switching jobs. Just until Jason's next commission clears." Jason was her husband. Charming. Confident. Always talking about the next big opportunity. I transferred $12,000 without hesitation. Then came the private school tuition for my grandchildren. Then the kitchen remodel was done because it increases home value. Then the emergency HVAC replacement. Then the new SUV because it's safer for the kids. Each time she promised to pay me back. Each time I told her not to worry about it. Because that's what mothers do. At least that's what I thought mothers did. Last November, Melissa called me, sounding excited. "Mom, we're planning a Christmas trip to Paris. The kids have never been. You should come with us." Paris. I had always wanted to see Paris. Leonard and I used to talk about it. We even had a jar labeled Paris one day in our kitchen cabinet. We never made it. So when Melissa invited me, I felt something inside me light up for the first time in years. 2 days later, she called again. "Mom, flights are insane right now. We were wondering if maybe you could put them on your card, and we'll reimburse you after bonuses." I said yes before she finished the sentence. Of course I did. The total was more than I had ever spent at once in my life. But this was family. This was Christmas. This was Paris. When the receipt came through, I noticed something. 4 business class seats. 1 economy seat. Mine. I told myself it was a mistake. I told myself it didn't matter. I told myself I was being petty for even noticing. The morning of the flight, I arrived at the airport early. I always arrive early. It's a teacher's habit that never leaves you. I saw Melissa near the premium check-in counter. Designer coat. Perfect hair. Jason is scrolling through his phone. The kids on tablets. "Mom!" she called. She hugged me. Quick. Light. Distracted. Then she leaned closer and lowered her voice. "Mom, you're flying economy. We're flying business class." She paused. Then added, softer but sharper. "I don't want you sitting with us." The world didn't stop. No one gasped. No dramatic music played. People kept walking. Announcements kept playing. Suitcases kept rolling across tile floors. But something inside me went very still. "I see," I said. And I smiled. Because I had spent a lifetime learning how to make other people comfortable. Even when it hurt me. They walked toward priority security. I walked toward the general boarding. And that was when something inside me changed. Not anger. Not yet. Clarity. On the plane, I sat in seat 33B. Between a man who coughed constantly and a teenager who never looked up from his phone. I stared at the seat in front of me and thought about those tickets. Business class. Round trip. Paid by me. Somewhere over the ocean, I opened my phone. My hands were steady. Calmer than they had been in years. I called my bank. Good afternoon, First National Financial. How can I help you? My name is Margaret Lewis, I said. I need a full record of all transfers over $5,000 in the last 2 years. There was a pause. Typing. Then, I'm seeing quite a few, Mrs. Lewis. I thought you might. Would you like them emailed? Yes. And I need information on restructuring my accounts. When the email arrived, I opened it, and my chest tightened. $198,300. Transferred to Melissa in 2 years. Not including gifts. Not including tickets. Not including smaller help. Just transfers. I didn't cry. I didn't panic. I just sat there. And for the first time in my life, I asked myself a question I had never allowed myself to ask. If I stopped giving, would she still love me? When we landed in Paris, Melissa texted, "Bags are taking forever. Meet outside." Not, "Did you have a good flight?" Not, "Are you okay?" Just instructions. At the hotel, my room was on a different floor. Closer to the elevators, she said. I smiled again. I had become very good at smiling. That night, while they drank wine and laughed in the hotel lounge, I sat in my room with my laptop open. I started a document. Transfers. Dates. Amounts. Promises. By midnight, I had 27 entries. By 2 a.m. I had a plan. Monday morning, everything would change. Because I didn't want revenge. I wanted respect. And sometimes, the only way to be respected is to stop being easy to use. If you're still here listening, tell me honestly, have you ever kept giving to someone because you were afraid they would leave if you stopped? Because I thought that was love. I was about to learn what love really costs. And by the time we flew home, my daughter was going to understand something she had never understood before. The next morning in Paris, I woke at sunrise. For 40 years, I had woken early to pack lunches, grade papers, prepare lessons, and make sure everyone else's day started smoothly. Old habits don't disappear just because your life changes. The hotel room was quiet. Too quiet. For a moment I forgot where I was. Then I saw the Eiffel Tower outside my window, glowing faint gold in the early morning fog, and remembered. Paris. The trip Leonard and I never took. The trip I paid for. The trip my daughter didn't want to sit next to me. I sat at the small desk near the window and opened my laptop. The spreadsheet I had started the night before stared back at me. Transfers. Dates. Reasons. Promises. I added more notes as memories came back. Temporary help. Short-term loan. Just until bonus season. Every promise had sounded sincere at the time. Every promise had sounded like family. My email notification chimed. The full bank export had arrived. I downloaded it. The file took longer than expected to open. Too many entries. When it finally loaded, my throat tightened. Line after line. Month after month. Money is leaving my account and landing in hers. I scrolled slowly. The kitchen remodel. The school tuition. The SUV down payment. The vacation deposit to Cabo the year before. The one I wasn't invited to. I didn't cry. I felt focused. Like something inside me had sharpened. By the time I finished categorizing everything, it was almost 9 a.m. Melissa texted. Breakfast downstairs. Don't be late. Kids have ski lessons. Don't be late. Not, would you like to join us? Not, good morning, Mom. Just instructions. I typed back. Coming. Downstairs, the restaurant smelled like fresh bread and espresso. Jason was already eating. The kids were arguing over hot chocolate. Melissa barely looked up when I sat down. We have reservations for lunch at 1, she said. Then shopping. Then dinner cruise. I nodded. And watched them. Really watched them. Not the version of them I held in my heart. The version that existed in front of me. Jason is checking stock alerts on his phone. Melissa is photographing her cappuccino for social media. The kids were barely speaking unless they wanted something. And I asked myself another question. Had they changed? Or had I finally stopped lying to myself? That afternoon, while they shopped on the Champs-Élysées, I told them I was tired and went back to the hotel. I wasn't tired. I just needed quiet. Back in my room, I called my bank again. This time, I asked for the estate planning department. A calm female voice answered. I explained I wanted to discuss asset protection and trust options. She asked a few basic questions. Then she said something that stayed with me. "Mrs. Lewis, are you concerned about potential financial exploitation?" The word hit me like cold water. Exploitation? I almost said no. I almost defended Melissa automatically. But then I saw her face in the airport. Heard her voice. "I don't want you sitting with us." "Yes," I said quietly. "I think I am." She transferred me to a specialist who scheduled a full consultation for Monday morning back home. When I hung up, my hands were shaking. Not from fear. From something closer to relief. That night, Melissa knocked on my door. "You missed shopping," she said. I needed rest. She looked at me carefully. "You okay?" I almost laughed. 4 years since Leonard died. 2 years of constant money requests. Airport humiliation. And now she was asking if I was okay because I skipped designer stores. "I'm fine," I said. She nodded, relieved, like a problem had been avoided. "Good. Tomorrow we're doing the Louvre early. Wear comfortable shoes." The rest of the trip passed like a movie I was watching from outside my body. Photos. Restaurants. Polite conversations. Distance. On the flight home, I didn't call the bank. I didn't need to. The plan was already forming. When we landed, Melissa hugged me again. "Love you, Mom," she said. And I realized something that hurt more than anything else. She probably believed that. In her own way. The Monday after we got home, I sat in a quiet office across from an estate attorney named Claire Donovan. She read through my financial summary silently. When she finished, she looked up. "Mrs. Lewis, how much of this has been repaid?" "None." She nodded slowly. "Okay. Here's what we're going to do." She explained revocable living trusts, asset shielding, beneficiary restructuring, documentation, evidence preservation. I listened to every word. I asked questions Leonard would have asked. By the end of the meeting, I had made 3 decisions. My house would go into the trust. My retirement accounts would be reassigned. My grandchildren would have educational trusts, locked until age 25. Melissa would no longer have direct access to anything. When I signed the first documents, my hand trembled slightly. Not from doubt. From grief. Because part of me had hoped I'd never need to do this. 3 days later, Melissa called. "Mom, did something happen to your accounts?" I stirred my tea slowly. "I reorganized some things." "Why didn't you tell me?" "I didn't realize I needed permission." Silence. Then her voice shifted. Concerned. Soft. Dangerous. "Mom, are you feeling okay?" This seemed sudden. There it was. The first hint of what was coming. "I feel very clear," I said. She didn't like that answer. The calls increased after that. Questions. Subtle guilt. Concern. Then irritation. Then something colder. 1 week later, Jason called me directly for the first time in years. "We're worried about you," he said. I almost smiled. "I'm fine. We just think maybe you're making decisions out of grief." Out of grief. Not out of awareness. Not out of experience. Out of weakness. "I appreciate your concern," I said calmly. "But my decisions are final." That was the moment I knew something had changed permanently. Because for the first time, I didn't feel guilty. I felt steady. 2 weeks later, Melissa stopped calling daily. 3 weeks later, she started texting instead. Short messages. Polite. Distant. And I realized something that surprised me. I missed my grandchildren. Terribly. But I didn't miss being needed only when my credit card was. If you're still listening to me right now, tell me honestly, have you ever mistaken being useful for being loved? Because I did. For years. And I was only beginning to understand the difference. But I didn't know yet. How far were Melissa and Jason willing to go? And when I found out, it would change everything. The first letter arrived on a Tuesday afternoon. It was thick. Official. Too heavy to be anything good. I found it in my mailbox between grocery coupons and a postcard from my book club friend in Vermont. For a moment, I almost carried it inside without opening it. As if I didn't read it, whatever was inside couldn't be real. But deep down I already knew. I stood in my kitchen, sunlight hitting the edge of the envelope, and carefully slid a finger under the seal. Attorney letterhead. My daughter's last name. Her husband's last name. And one word that made my stomach drop. Evaluation. They were requesting a formal cognitive evaluation. Not suggesting. Requesting. Framed as concern. Written in legal language that sounded polite on the surface and brutal underneath. They were worried about my decision-making capacity. They were worried about sudden financial changes. They were worried about potential self-harm through financial mismanagement. I sat down slowly at the kitchen table. I read it again. Then again. Then I laughed. Not because it was funny, because it was so predictable. I picked up my phone and called Claire, my attorney. I received something, I said. Email me a photo right now, she said immediately. I did. There was silence on the line while she read. Then she exhaled slowly. Okay. I was afraid they might try this. They think I'm losing my mind, I said. No, she said calmly. They think they're losing control. That sentence settled into my chest like a stone dropping into still water. They can't force you into anything, she continued. But this is the beginning of pressure. We respond calmly, strategically. She told me to schedule my own full neurological and cognitive exam with a specialist they trusted. Documentation is protection, she said. 2 days later, I sat in a bright, quiet office answering memory tests, logic questions, and pattern recognition exercises. For hours. At the end, the doctor smiled. Mrs. Lewis, you are cognitively excellent. Honestly, you're sharper than most people I see 20 years younger. I almost cried. Not because I doubted myself, but because someone had tried to make me doubt myself. Meanwhile, Melissa's text changed tone again. Mom, I don't understand why you're shutting us out. Mom, the kids are asking why you're acting different. Mom, we just want you safe. Safe. Like I was a danger to myself. Like I was fragile. Like I was not the woman who ran a classroom of 30 children for decades. Then the next phase came. The guilt. Mom, Emma is crying because she thinks you don't love us anymore. Mom, Lucas asked if you're mad at him. Those messages hurt more than anything legal. Because children don't understand adult manipulation. Children just feel loss. I started writing everything down. Dates. Messages. Call summaries. Claire told me to document everything. So I did. Then one Saturday afternoon my doorbell rang. When I opened the door, Emma stood there. Alone. Backpack on. Hair was messy as she had rushed. Grandma, she said. Can I come in? My heart cracked open instantly. Of course, I said. She stepped inside and looked around like she hadn't been here in years. Mom said you're sick, she said quietly. I knelt in front of her. I am not sick. She said you're forgetting things. I am not forgetting things. She studied my face carefully. You look the same. I am the same. She nodded slowly, like she was storing that away somewhere deep. We sat on the couch and talked about school. Friends. Books she liked. For 1 hour everything felt normal. Then the front door burst open. Melissa stood there. Her eyes went straight to Emma. Get your coat, she said sharply. Emma flinched. Melissa, I said standing slowly. You could have knocked. I told her not to come here, Melissa snapped. She wanted to see me. You're confusing her, she said. Confusing her. Loving my granddaughter was manipulation. Melissa, I said quietly. You are scaring her. Melissa turned toward me. And for the first time, I saw something in her eyes I had never seen before. Fear. Not concerned. Not anger. Fear. You need help, she said. I have help, I said calmly. Legal and medical. That was when Jason stepped into the doorway behind her. We're moving forward with the evaluation, he said. You can't force me, I said. He smiled slightly. We can try. Emma started crying. Melissa grabbed her hand and pulled her toward the door. Come on, she said. We're leaving. The house felt hollow after they left. I stood in the living room shaking. Then I called Claire. They came to my house, I said. Good, she said. I blinked. Good. Yes. That means they're desperate. And desperate people make mistakes. 2 weeks later we received notice. They had filed for a temporary financial conservatorship review. My daughter was trying to legally control my finances. That night I didn't sleep. Not because I was afraid of losing money. Because I was realizing something worse. My daughter believed I was easier to control than to respect. And that realization hurt more than anything else. If you're still here with me right now, tell me something honestly. Have you ever realized someone didn't value you, only what you provided? Because when that realization hits, changes you forever. But I didn't break. I didn't collapse. I prepared. Because if they wanted a fight, they were about to learn something about me they had forgotten. I don't quit. And I don't forget. And in 3 weeks, in a courtroom, my daughter was going to learn exactly who I really was. The courthouse smelled like polished wood and old paper. It was colder inside than I expected. Not temperature. Atmosphere. The kind of cold that settles into your bones when you realize you're somewhere that changes lives permanently. I arrived early. Of course I did. Some habits never leave you. Claire met me near the security checkpoint, a leather folder tucked under her arm. Her expression calm in the way only very prepared people can be calm. "You ready?" she asked. I thought about the airport, about the plane, about the letter, about Emma standing in my doorway asking if I was sick. "Yes," I said, as I was, not ready to fight my daughter, but ready to stop losing myself. The courtroom was smaller than I imagined. No dramatic gallery, no shouting lawyers like television, just quiet tension and people pretending not to stare at each other. Melissa sat across the aisle with Jason and their attorney. She wouldn't look at me. Jason did. His face was neutral. Too neutral. The judge entered and everything shifted. Procedure started. Their attorney spoke first. Concerned tone. Carefully chosen words. Sudden financial restructuring. Isolation behavior. Possible cognitive decline. Every sentence was crafted to sound protective. Every sentence painted me as fragile, as confused, as vulnerable. I sat perfectly still. Claire squeezed my hand once, then stood when it was our turn. She didn't raise her voice. She didn't dramatize. She just opened the folder. "Your Honor, we have medical documentation from a full neurological evaluation conducted by a court-recognized specialist." She handed papers forward. "Mrs. Lewis shows 0 signs of cognitive impairment." Pause. "Additionally, we have documented financial transfers totaling over $190,000 over 2 years to the petitioning party, with 0 repayment." The room went very quiet. Their attorney shifted slightly. Melissa's head lowered. Jason stared straight ahead. Claire continued. "We also have written communication showing repeated promises of repayment tied to those transfers." She placed printed emails forward. The judge read silently for a long time. Long enough for my heartbeat to slow. Long enough for me to notice Melissa's hands shaking. Then Claire said something that changed everything. "Your Honor, we believe this filing is not about protection. We believe it is about control." The judge looked up. Directly to Melissa. Not angry. Just sharp. Melissa's attorney tried to redirect. Talked about family concerns. Emotional distress. Fear of elder vulnerability. Then came cross-questioning. Claire asked Melissa one simple question. "How much money have you repaid your mother?" Silence. The judge looked up. "Answer the question." Melissa's voice cracked. "None." It wasn't loud, but it felt like thunder. Then Claire asked Jason about income. His salary. His bonuses. Their lifestyle expenses. Each answer painted a picture they didn't want painted. Then Claire asked one final question. "Did you or did you not tell Mrs. Lewis she could not sit with you on the flight she paid for?" Jason hesitated. "Yes," he said finally. I didn't look at them. I looked at the judge. Because in that moment, I knew. The ruling came faster than I expected. Petition denied. No conservatorship review. Full dismissal. The judge's final words were calm but sharp. "Mrs. Lewis has demonstrated clear financial competence. I strongly recommend family mediation if you wish to repair this relationship." Repair. Like relationships were broken furniture. Outside the courtroom, Melissa approached me. Her eyes were red. "Mom," she said softly. I held up my hand. Not angry. Just done. "Not today," I said. And I walked away. In the parking garage, I sat in my car for a long time. Hands on the steering wheel. Breathing. Not crying. Just breathing. Because something inside me had finally stopped shaking. That night my house felt different. Not emptier. Quieter. Safer. The next few weeks were strange. Melissa didn't call. Jason didn't text. Silence. Then consequences started showing up in small ways. Jason's company placed him under internal review after the case became public record. Melissa's social circle got quieter. Invitations stopped. Then 3 weeks later a letter arrived. Handwritten. From Melissa. Mom, I don't expect forgiveness. But I need you to know. You were right. I read that sentence 3 times. I set the letter down. I didn't cry. Because something inside me had already changed. If you're still listening right now, tell me honestly, have you ever had to choose between keeping peace and keeping your dignity? Because sometimes, you can't keep both. And I was finally learning which one mattered more. But the story wasn't over. Because losing control changes people. And sometimes, changes them for the better. And sometimes, doesn't. And what happened next? I never expected. Autumn arrived quietly that year. I noticed it one morning when I stepped outside to get my mail and realized the maple tree in my front yard had turned completely red overnight. For years I had rushed past that tree on my way to work, on my way to appointments, on my way to help someone else with something urgent. That morning I stood there for a long time just looking at it. Because for the first time in years, nothing was urgent. No financial emergency texts. No last minute mom, we need help. No pressure disguised as love. Just quiet. And I didn't realize how exhausted I had been until the exhaustion started leaving my body. The weeks after the court hearing were strange. Not dramatic. Not explosive. Just silent. Melissa didn't call. Jason didn't reach out. For a while I checked my phone more than I wanted to admit. Old habits of hoping are hard to break. But slowly something new replaced that habit. Peace. The first real shift came when Claire called me one morning. I wanted you to hear it from me, she said. Jason's firm has placed him on extended review. The case made its way through professional channels. I sat down at my kitchen table slowly. Is he going to lose his job? I asked. I don't know, she said. But there are consequences when financial ethics are questioned in that field. I thanked her. When I hung up, I expected to feel satisfaction. Instead, I felt complicated. Because even after everything, a part of me still saw Jason as the man who held my daughter's hand when she was nervous about job interviews. That part of me hadn't died. It just wasn't in charge anymore. A month later, I heard from a mutual friend that Melissa had taken a job. Part-time. Reception work at a medical office. Her first job in nearly 15 years. Again, I expected to feel something sharp. But mostly I felt something closer to relief. Because maybe, just maybe, she was learning something she had never been forced to learn before. That money isn't the same as security. And control isn't the same as love. The first real crack in the silence came in late November. My landline rang. Almost no one calls landlines anymore. When I picked up, I heard Emma's voice. Grandma. My throat closed instantly. Yes, sweetheart. She was quiet for a second. I'm not supposed to call, she said. My heart broke and healed at the same time. Are you okay? I asked. Yes, she said quickly. I miss you. I closed my eyes. I miss you too. She told me about school. About a writing contest she entered. About how she made the soccer team but didn't love it as much as she thought she would. Normal things. Beautiful, ordinary, normal things. Before she hung up, she said something that stayed with me for weeks. Grandma, I know you're not sick. I swallowed hard. Thank you, I said. After that, calls happen maybe once every 2 weeks. Short, careful, but real. Then in January, something unexpected happened. Melissa wrote again. Another letter. Longer this time. Less defensive. More honest. She wrote about how losing financial safety forced them to change everything. Selling the house. Moving to a smaller rental. Jason is taking a lower-paying position at a smaller firm. She wrote about learning how much things actually cost. About budgeting. About working again. About embarrassment. About shame. And then she wrote something I never expected to read. I think I forgot how to see you as a person, Mom. Not just someone who fixed problems. I'm trying to learn again. I read that sentence 6 times. I didn't respond right away. Because forgiveness is complicated. And healing isn't a straight line. Spring came. Then summer. I joined a book club. I started watercolor classes. I made friends who knew me as Margaret. Not Mom. Not Grandma. Just Margaret. I took a trip to Italy alone. I stood in Florence holding gelato and laughing at nothing, and I realized something I never expected to realize at 69 years old. My life wasn't over. It was just mine now. Then one afternoon in late August, my doorbell rang. When I opened the door, Emma stood there. Taller. Older. More sure of herself. Mom knows I'm here, she said quickly. I told her I was coming. I stepped aside and let her in. We spent 3 hours talking. Really talking. Not about family drama. About books. About writing. About her dreams. When I drove her home, Melissa came out onto the porch. She looked different. Not defeated. Not arrogant. Just tired. And older than I remembered. Thank you for bringing her home, she said quietly. You're welcome, I said. There was a long silence. Then she said something very simple. I'm trying, Mom. I nodded. I know. That wasn't forgiveness. Not fully. But it was something real. And sometimes real is enough to start with. Now, when I sit in my living room in the evenings, the house doesn't feel empty. Feels calm. I still miss the version of my daughter I thought existed. But I'm learning to accept the version who is trying to become better. And I'm learning something else too. Love without boundaries isn't love. It's permission. Permission to be used. Permission to be overlooked. Permission to be reduced to what you can provide. And I am not permitted anymore. If you've listened this far, I want to ask you something. Have you ever been afraid to set boundaries because you thought you might lose someone? As I was. For years. And maybe you will lose some people. But sometimes, you find yourself. And sometimes, that's worth everything. Thank you for listening to my story. Wherever you are in the world today, I hope you remember something. You deserve respect. Not just love. Respect. And if you ever have to choose between being needed and being valued, choose being valued. Every time.